going, guys? It's Jacob Haugh here with
Shayne Williamson.
And welcome back for our 9th installment of Jay
and Shays
Sports for Dummies. Today we will be talking about the NFL Combine and free agency. Then we'll hit the MLB with some more negative news, sadly. Then we will head to the NBA and end today with a little bit of college hoops.
Yep.
Now let's start it off with a lot of what is in the media today, and that is the NFL, per usual. But we have the Combine coming up. This is an exciting time. If your team didn't do that well this year, it's time to look at the Combine, look at your future, look at these players. And let's look at one who's finally healthy. That's Tua.
Yeah.
Go ahead and give me some info.
Tua, this is a great thing to see, especially if you are the Detroit Lions or the Miami Dolphins or maybe even the Los Angeles Chargers who are thinking of moving up and getting this guy. Tua is expected to be cleared on March 9th. He's not going to do any drills in the Combine, obviously, because it's not March 9th and he is not cleared. But he'll be cleared on March 9th and he plans to get rolling on things as soon as possible. He's not sure if he'll make it to Alabama's pro day, but he's having his own pro day on April 9th. So he will throw for NFL teams at some point this offseason, which is good news because especially of how devastating the injury sounded back when he first had it, for him to be back so quickly is good news. So hopefully he's 100%.
Exactly. And even though he may not be a part of the Combine, this is still news to the Combine because now it looks like you're only going to have 3 or 4 huge arms throwing in Indianapolis. Wish you the best in your recovery, and hopefully we can see him in the league next year taking a couple snaps.
For sure.
Next, one thing people aren't talking about is whether or not Okudah is a lock for the Lions at 3. If you are the GM of the Detroit Lions, do you say, let me go out and get a lockdown corner at number 3? Who do you take?
For sure, especially because their situation with Darius Slay is really in flux right now. They're experimenting, maybe trading him because they don't want to extend him after this year. So if your plan is to move on from Darius Slay, which I guess that is a thing you could do, I wouldn't advise it, but you need to replace him immediately, and I think Jeff Okudah from Ohio State, he's a lockdown corner, one of the best corners to come in the draft in a while, probably since Marshawn Lattimore, also an OSU product. So I definitely think you plan on moving on from Darius Slay, Okudah will pick up the slack immediately.
Yeah, I think Okudah is the smart pick. And it is also a safe pick. And a lot of safe picks in the first round sometimes are just stars that are already made. You don't need to make them. I think he fits right into your system. If Slay leaves, Okudah's your next star.
Yeah.
Hopefully he lives up to his hype and the potential. Now let's look at a team that we're not normally talking about when it comes to draft season, and that's the Patriots.
Yeah.
What do they do, and what do they need to find this draft? From what I've written down and looked at, they need a running back, a tight end, an offensive and defensive tackle, and a quarterback. If Tom Brady leaves, quarterback becomes number 1.
Maybe even if he stays.
Exactly.
But I would also personally add wide receiver to that list.
Yeah.
I think running back, this class is pretty good. So I don't think you necessarily need to do that in round 1. I would say if someone from the trenches on either side, offensive or defensive line, a guy you like, slips and falls in the draft, because we always have a couple who teams just overthink and try to go for the big swing, and then the guys, like you said, the safe picks who are going to come in and contribute immediately fall down in the draft because they're not as exciting. So I think that would be a real stereotypical Patriots pick. But I do think that Jordan Love is in play here, especially if they get any inkling that Tom Brady is either leaving or retiring after this year or the year after. So I think offensive or defensive line is their first priority if they feel like Tom Brady's coming back. If they feel like he's not or he's going after this year, Jordan Love is probably priority number 1 for them.
Alrighty, that's your thoughts from Shayne. Now we're going to move forward and look at a guy who's all over the media. He's all through my phone, being a fan of the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
He said, Joe Burrow said that he will play anywhere. He stated today that the media took and ran that story of him wanting to pull an Eli. He said he will play anywhere.
Yeah.
From what I've seen from reports, this is one of the best teams to have a number 1 pick when it comes to surrounding a young star with talent. Whether or not they can win games with that talent is the problem.
Right.
And I think this is one of the best situations a quarterback has gone into if the Bengals draft the quarterback, and I think they will, I think they draft Joe Burrow. There's no doubt in my mind.
Right.
But I think this is one of the best situations a young quarterback could go into. You sign A.J. Green back, you have a veteran receiver. And then you look at that receiving core, they low-key have one of the most decent receiving cores in the NFL. It's stout.
Right.
Their offensive line's a little shaky, and I think Joe Burrow can make it work with the Bengals. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to win in the playoffs. I'm saying that Joe Burrow could be a very good fit for an offense that is a ticking time bomb to explode. The defense is a different story. I mean, there's still a lot of problems with the Bengals. But I think Joe Burrow could be a very important piece, and I think him being open to the idea to play for the Bengals is better than him saying, I don't want to play for the Bengals, and then the Dolphins take Tua, and then you end up in Detroit.
Right.
I think certain teams are sold on certain guys. I think Cincinnati's sold on Burrow. I think Miami's sold on Tua. I think those two are pretty standard right now. Another thing I saw in the news today, I think it was on Bleacher Report, was that Ruggs is going out for John Ross's record on the 40. And Chris Johnson used to always laugh and post other guys' opinion on whether or not they're going to break his record. But John Ross has kind of been quiet. I really want to see someone break his record because I think he is more than just speed because he's trying to learn how to run routes.
Right.
But I'm very interested to see what Ruggs gets on his 40 time. Do you think he breaks the record?
Yeah, I think.
Whoa.
I don't know, because the combine's always tricky. You never know who's gonna go out there, get off to a slow start on a run, or maybe pull a hamstring, God forbid, of course. But you never quite know. I think him, along with Jalen Reagor, who is a wide receiver out of TCU, both have a really good chance because they are blazing fast. If you're unfamiliar with Henry Ruggs, just look up his highlights on YouTube. Look how many plays he went curl route. There's 3 defenders around him, and he just blows by all 3 as if they're running in quicksand. He is absolutely fast. So keep your eyes on when the wide receivers go for it because they're 2 big candidates to break John Ross's record this year: Henry Ruggs and Jalen Reagor.
Now let's talk about some storylines in the NFL, even some free agent storylines. First one is the CBA drama with the playoffs. This one's just gonna be a quick hit. I'm gonna try to limit us here, and so we don't go off and make a whole new episode of the CBA drama. Let's just give our personal opinion. I am personally for it because it's more TV, it's more marketability, and only one team gets a bye. Sometimes I feel like that second team that gets into the playoffs definitely doesn't deserve to be that second seed just because they play in a tough division and then they end up winning a couple games and boom, you're magically in the second seed, like the Chiefs. Like this year, they magically got the second seed.
Right.
Like I thought that was kind of hilarious because if the Patriots won, would the Chiefs win the Super Bowl? Well, if the Patriots beat the Dolphins, do the Chiefs win the Super Bowl?
It changes everything because the Ravens don't play the Titans anymore.
Exactly.
So that would be interesting.
I think the second seed is a very shaky spot, and the way to shore that up is to add a 7th team and give that first team the bye. Because in my opinion, if there's one team that deserves to do it, it's the best in the conference, and they are always separated from the conference. Always. Those number 1 teams are dang near always separated. Next, what is your opinion?
I think, just to keep it short and simple, as a football fan, big fan of adding one more game to the regular season, and it makes it a little more exciting adding one more playoff game. However, I do think for the players, they have to make it worth it. They have to make sure that the pay is sustained throughout the whole 17-game season plus the playoffs, and they have to make it so rosters are larger, so these players don't have to add potentially 2 more games to what they normally would play in a regular season.
Yep.
So just making the rosters bigger so they can probably take more snaps off in games that they're blowing out teams, things of that nature. So those are just 2 things to look out for. It is interesting though that the owners are pretty set on this, and that if the Players Association doesn't bend to their will essentially, that it's a high possibility of a lockout. So this is a situation to keep our eye on for sure.
Of course. Now let's head to some player storylines. One thing that was confusing me when I read it, and I tried to read it and comprehend it and be like, I'm okay with this, is Matt Rule wanting Cam Newton to be his starting quarterback. I thought we did this. I thought we had our soap opera of Cam Newton. I mean, obviously he was hurt this season, but I don't see where it's appealing for him to be under center anymore. And this may be a hot take in a certain form or fashion, but I don't think Cam Newton fits in Carolina anymore. What is your opinion?
I think that's nonsense. The last time we saw him play football and he was healthy, which was last season, before the second half of the season.
But do you see, you have to say that? They had a very good start to the year, and then they plummeted.
Because he got hurt.
Oh, my.
So when he's playing healthy, he's very good. And Matt Rule does a lot of the option stuff so he can play off of Christian McCaffrey. And Cam Newton already makes the running game dangerous with his own legs without standing next to a top 2 running back in the league. So I think, granted, health, he needs to be healthy. But if he's healthy, I think the Carolina Panthers will be really good next year.
Alrighty, moving on. We're going to talk about Austin Hooper, a guy when you looked at him 2 or 3 years ago, you'd say, who's that? But now he's one of the hottest tight ends to hit the free agent market. We got the news either today that he's going to hit the free agent market.
Yeah.
I think this smells like New England. This smells like a Patriots signing. I don't know where else he'd fit in, but I definitely think this is Bill Belichick's MO right now to look at Hooper and say, this could be the guy. Because you don't have Gronk, and you need a tight end, and you saw that in the playoffs. They needed a guy who's going to be a security blanket and is going to catch it and move forward. I mean, where else do you see Hooper fitting?
Well, I could see him going to one of the places that are drafting a quarterback this year, maybe Miami with Tua.
They have Gesicki.
Cincinnati.
They already have Gesicki.
You see with the Ravens is real dangerous if you have more than one tight end.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, but their scheme fits a running quarterback.
Sure. But what does that have to do with tight ends?
I mean, it's just with a running quarterback, they have not a longer arm, therefore they're more prone to throw to a tight end rather than a wideout.
Well, that doesn't... Okay. We're not going to get into the intricacies of Lamar Jackson, who has a cannon for an arm, so I'm not really sure what that's about. But...
accuracy is the problem.
But whatever. Completion percentage, whatever.
He had a very good season. You're not wrong.
2 tight ends always works because you force both of their linebackers to guard 2 tight ends. So I could see that happening. I think when you have one of the best tight ends, you could fit in anywhere that someone wants to plug you in. Say, here, run these routes, beat this linebacker, and he can do that. Just as on a personal note, I hope he doesn't go to New England because I do not want to see a renaissance there because they definitely were. Tom Brady at this stage in his career really does need that security blanket. The guy, other than Julian Edelman, who he knows, hey, if I look at this guy, he's going to be open. So
yeah, I
think anywhere he goes, he'll be fine. But New England is definitely, I agree, somewhere where he could thrive for sure.
Of course. Now moving on, 2 guys that we would be talking about if this was 2 weeks ago, but now have more like simmered in the pan. The water has stopped boiling. And a lot of these people think they're just going to end up back with their old teams, and that is Stephon Diggs and A.J. Green. Joe Burrow said in an interview today, per ESPN, that if he ends up on the Bengals, A.J. Green is a weapon he would want to have. This is something he'd want.
Right.
And if you're the Bengals, you have to listen. Because if this is your future quarterback, you have to take this move seriously. And then Stephon Diggs. I mean, this guy has carried your franchise on his back with the Minnesota Miracle. And he's a very image guy. He's a feisty player that gets people pumped up. And I promise you, if you lose him, that's going to be a locker room problem.
Yeah, A.J. Green is a bit stickier because he goes into the open market. Stephon Diggs is under contract, so for Minnesota, there's no chance that you trade this guy. You tell him to suck it up and come to training camp and come play football with Kirk Cousins for the rest of your contract.
I know we said free agents, but I just knew that Diggs fit in this scenario. Next. I don't want to talk about this for more than 30 seconds.
No.
Just because I can't stand it.
No.
There is a domino that starts a whole nother rung of dominoes, and that is Tom Brady. I personally think that he could leave the Patriots, but I have no clue where he's going because I'm not Tom Brady. I think this is the most unpredictable free agent of the entire market, and once his free agency deal is done, a lot of dominoes start to fall, and we'll see free agency break wide open. Where do you think he ends up? I can't give you a place where I see him fitting.
I think he goes back to New England, but I think this whole thing is dumb because he's bad now.
Yep.
So I don't get why everyone is lining up to sign him, but big name. I don't know. If he leaves New England, I can see Las Vegas for sure.
I can see Las Vegas in the sense that he can teach Derek Carr some things.
Sure.
But it's not a long-term... He's no one's long-term solution.
No, but I can definitely see Mark Davis convincing himself, like, oh my God, Tom Brady, we're going to Las Vegas, new stadium, we're going to kill it. Or the Los Angeles
Super Bowl.
Chargers. So just dumb franchises who see a big name and a big splash in a new stadium.
Yeah, shout out to Albert Hainsworth.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, the free agent that's hitting the market, correct?
Yeah, Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
Does he explore beyond the Cowboys first, or does he listen to the Cowboys first? Who would you think Amari Cooper would go to first? To other teams or to the Cowboys?
I think because the Cowboys have been pretty... The Cowboys are in a tough situation because they have three big guys lined up right now. Dak Prescott, Byron Jones, Amari Cooper. So they've been kind of stingy with money towards Byron and Amari. So if I were Amari and also Byron Jones, just to throw him in there, I would go to other teams, see if I can get as big of a deal as possible, and then come back to Dallas like, hey, could you get at least like within this deal? Not even like match it, but just get within this deal because this is what I'm worth on the market. I would love to come back, but you got to pay me to do so. So
yep.
I don't see him taking a hometown discount. I say he goes out, explores the market. If Dallas doesn't fork up and at least get within the ballpark, he's gone.
Exactly. Well, whether or not these guys are going to sign is a pretty big deal, but we all know they're eventually going to be playing. But let's talk about another team from another sport, like a completely other sport, that people are questioning if they should even be allowed to hit the ballpark this year, and that is the Houston Astros in the MLB. This is just a quick spotlight. I've seen so much negative media attention about the Houston Astros that is literally sickening. I am agreeing with all of this negative media attention. They deserve it because they got the media attention of a parade, a championship, an MVP, putting this up when we win our championship. Look at our big flag in our stadium when we open our stadium at the beginning of the season. I don't care. You cheated.
Yeah.
You deserve all of this negative media attention. We've said this 3 times, maybe 4 in our podcast. You were going to get hit this season. It happened during spring ball.
Already. Right out the gate.
Stephen A. Smith said it best. Shut up.
Yeah.
Stop talking. You are doing nothing but hurting yourselves even more. We get they have talent. They have talent, period. We were talking on our way back from a class here today that they still won games on the road in the playoffs, in the World Series. But in 2017, in the Yankees series, back and forth, they won games at home and didn't lose them when they played in the Yankees ballpark. And which is an interesting point to look at, but you can't lie. They do have talent. The problem is, I can't stand the fact that they knew they had talent and had to cheat. They didn't need to.
Right.
Why did they cheat if they knew they already had talent? Another thing that I think is very bitey and, lack of a better word, clickbaity, is this tattoo story. There was this interesting take that Altuve had a shirt on, and then he took it off when he hit his home run.
Yeah.
And the reasoning for that was displayed by his teammate that he got a new tattoo, and he didn't like the irritation against his skin.
Yeah.
And one thing I'm saying is, where was that irritation for 8 innings?
Who knows?
And where's the tattoo? There is a video on Bleacher Report's app. Little plug to Bleacher Report. I love Bleacher Report. Go there. There's a video of a fan literally saying, "Show me your tattoo," and he is ignoring to the umpteenth degree. If you are the Houston Astros, Jay's, not Shay's, Jay's personal opinion, you do not deserve to touch a single field this season. It is disgusting that you cheated to win a championship.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
That's fair.
We've seen people get away with it in the past, and if you say, who? Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. People have swept that under the rug. Roger Goodell's not very good at dealing with these things. If you're the MLB, this is your chance to be marketable and show that you have a very strong structure. for the owner of a baseball team that you just reprimanded to say his cheating didn't impact him winning, and you didn't do anything about that is terrible look for your organization.
Yep.
I think moving forward, there's got to be more. There has to be. What are your thoughts? Sorry, kids and families at home. I didn't mean to yell at you.
Yeah, listen, he covered everything pretty much. I'm just excited to see how fiercely they get booed in every stadium they go in this year and how many times they get hit on the shoulder and the back and the leg with fastballs this year. So it'll be an entertaining season to watch the Astros for sure.
I just think now this is a bunch of drama, and I hope the MLB doesn't use that for publicity rather than being a strong-willed organization. And I don't know. I don't know. This is just a lot for me as a person who loves sports and loves competition. And if I knew that someone was cheating to win, I'd be... I mean, you've seen the reaction of the other players. This is just disgusting. But moving on from a negative topic to something sad in a different aspect is something we had watched, and that is the tribute to Kobe Bryant with Vanessa there, NBA legends riddled all over that, and we're moving to the NBA, and I just want to state that this was beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that relationship was there with Michael Jordan and Kobe. And you knew they were friends, but it was pure. You saw how many lives he impacted just within a stadium. And Kobe is still here.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. And that's all I have to say about it. Rest in peace, Kobe, once again. But I just can't say enough about what these players and men are doing to respect and honor such a great athlete to the game.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really cool seeing just how many basketball players were there that had a game later that day. Devin Booker was there. He had a game in Utah later that day. Didn't matter. He was in Staples Center. James Harden and Russell Westbrook had a game in Houston later that day. Didn't matter. They were in the Staples Center. Sabrina Ionescu, Oregon Ducks women's basketball star. She had a game at Stanford. Didn't matter. She was in the Staples Center. I thought it was really cool to see, like you said, just how many people he's touched or he did touch during the course of his life, and his legacy really does live on. Just peace and prayers to all families involved, and yeah.
Now let's try to move it to a more happier setting. Let's take a deep breath. 3, 2, 1. All right, now let's look at the All-Star Weekend recap, all right? The 3-point contest was out of this world.
Yeah.
I mean, for Levine to score 23 and that not be one of the top scorers was wild to me. Like, it's... Okay, just for people to hit clips like they were, it was awesome. I didn't like the insertion of the Sprite shot.
Yeah, it was weird.
It didn't... I feel like it messes up their flow a little bit. But I thought that these guys shot the lights out. They deserved to be there and had a great time.
Yeah, we have a ton of really good shooters in the league now. I looked at the field that Saturday because I hadn't really looked at it that in depth, and I was like, wow, we have a bunch of sharpshooters in here. So I picked Devin Booker to win, and I thought he was gonna win. He hit 25 on his last rack in the championship round, but Buddy Hield, he just stepped up, hit 26, and he took it home. So it was definitely very exciting, but not as exciting as the next event.
And the next event, in my eyes, was exciting until Dwayne Wade was a homer. And that is the dunk contest where Aaron Gordon got robbed again. I personally think he deserved to win this dunk contest. He dunked and cleared, if you look at it, in slow motion, Taco Fall in this dunk contest. Name other people who can jump straight over a 7-foot man.
Yeah, 7'5". I think even if he hadn't cleared them, he only got over 7'3" of them. What? He hit his head on the way down, but on the dunk, he got over his head. So, I don't know. Apparently, there was some talk amongst the judges that 2 of them were going to give him a 9 so they could go again. But then Dwayne Wade saw that they gave him the 9, and then he threw up the 9. So his former Heat teammate, Derrick Jones Jr., could win. So, whatever. Probably should have saw that coming as a conflict of interest, but Aaron Gordon definitely got robbed again, and then afterwards he stated that
he's not doing it again.
He's not doing it again. So I appreciate the events that you did do. I think you probably should have 2 trophies, but it's all good. I appreciated your greatness while it lasted.
Next, go ahead and hit me with this new format.
Yeah, the new format. Listen, I distinctly remember slamming this when I first got the notification from Woj that they were doing this. They adopted the Elam ending from the basketball tournament. If anyone's familiar with that, it happens during the summertime, to where going into the fourth quarter, they would take the leading team's score and add 24 to it. So that score the first team to that score will win. So it happened to be 157 in this game, and the game was intense through the first 3 quarters. Team LeBron won the first quarter. Team Giannis came back and won the second quarter by a lot, and then they tied in the third quarter. So LeBron's team was down going into the fourth, but they really locked it down, came all the way back, and I think the one thing I would complain about is that it ended on a free throw. A good play by LeBron. You see Kyle Lowry on Anthony Davis. He gives Anthony Davis the ball, and he goes to the line. He missed the first free throw to make it a little bit more exciting in his hometown.
That's what he said, yeah.
Yeah, and then he hits the second one to walk it off. But I think in the future, the way to make this perfect,
no free throws.
Foul,
no free
just check it up at the top.
Yep.
That's all you got to do.
It's the All-Star game. And you're going to say, whoa, where are the rules? Well, also, we're going to a score. This never happens.
Right.
So it's okay to throw that rule out of the window. Next, another sad spot in the NBA. Kyrie and Ben Simmons out indefinitely with injuries. Also on the injury list is Kyle Lowry. But these two are big hits for big reasons because they are the star and key holders of their organizations.
Yeah.
I see it negatively impacting the Nets to the point where I can see them like falling out bad. And the 76ers have got to stay together throughout this process. Al Horford has got to play better.
He stinks. Jeez. I think the Nets, luckily for them, the East is so bad and they're so far ahead of the Wizards, who are behind them in the 9th place, that they would literally like not have to win again this year to not make the playoffs. And I think they will win again this year, obviously. Karis LeVert, Spencer Dinwiddie, they have some other good pieces, so I think they'll make the playoffs, but they'll get smoked by the Bucks in the first round. The Sixers are a bit different. It's definitely sad because right before the All-Star break, we saw Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons miss like all major media outlets saying, oh, these two hate each other, they don't want to play with each other. Both dropped 26 against the Clippers and beat them at home. A huge win going into the break, and then he comes back from the break in practice, hurts his back, got an MRI. They never really said what happened to it. They just said he's out indefinitely. So hopefully he's back by the playoffs. I think if he's back by the playoffs, Sixers
I think there could be a surprise.
Yeah, the Sixers could be. They are built to go on a run in the playoffs, but that's only if Ben comes back, because throughout the course of this year, he's been a top 3 perimeter defender, if not the best perimeter defender in the league. And really, he's been the only one who gave full effort every game for the Sixers this year. So definitely a huge loss. We'll see how they keep up with it.
Next, I'm going to hit you with a little quick piece before we go to our standings update. And that is Bradley Beal. This poor guy is stuck on a team that can't help but lose. I mean, if you look at their record, go ahead and hit me with the stats, Shayne. I know you have it up.
Yeah, the Wizards are 20-36 right now, and it's really bad because in the last 2 games specifically, Bradley Beal, who did not make the All-Star game despite averaging 29 points per game, but that's whatever. He scored 53 points, and then in the very next game scored 55 points. So that's 108 points in a 2-game stretch, and they lost both games. They lost both games.
And you know what I love about him?
What?
He said those points don't matter if we don't win.
Throw them away.
I
don't need them.
Throw them away.
Yeah. So he definitely has the correct mentality. And like I said in a previous podcast, I do not like the amount of people who are blaming him for how bad they are, or blaming him for staying on such a bad team, because you would have ripped him if he went to LA. But he decided to stay home. He decided to stick through it. And he gets punished by the media. He gets punished by coaches in All-Star voting. It's really weird.
It's just sad.
Mm-hmm.
Now to move on to one thing we should be doing every single time we have a podcast, and we do for you guys, is a standings update. I'll give you the Eastern Conference. Shayne's going to go ahead and give you the Western Conference. In the East, at number 1, you got the Bucks. Close behind is the Raptors. Very nipping at their heels are the Celtics. And you have the Heat, 76ers, and the Pacers, sort of in the middle ground. And then with losing records, you have the Nets and Magic rounding out the top 8 with playoff implications within there. And then you got the Wizards at 9, 5 games back. Go ahead and give me those Western Conference standings.
Yeah, at first, we got the Lakers, who are 5 games ahead of the number 2 seed, which are the Nuggets. The Clippers at the 3 seed, 1 game behind the Nuggets. The Nuggets are at the 4 seed, 2 games behind the Nuggets, 1 game behind the Clippers. The Jazz are at the 5. The Thunder are at the 6. The Mavericks are at the 7. And the Memphis Grizzlies, led by John Morant, are at the 8. However, the Trailblazers, who are free-falling, but more importantly, the New Orleans Pelicans, are right on the Grizzlies' tail. They've won 7 of their last 10 games. Zion Williamson's playing really good basketball at the same time that the Grizzlies entering a tough stretch at the end of the season. So it'll be interesting to see if the Pelicans can take that playoff spot from the Grizzlies. And if they can, does Zion win Rookie of the Year? He has the media narrative behind him. He has the bigger name behind him. If they get that playoff spot, I can't really see how they would give Ja that Rookie of the Year over him. But we'll check on that later on.
Sort of like a little foreshadowing. But while the standings in the NBA seem pretty substantial and pretty clear-cut and very status quo, let's look at a shakeup in college basketball. It happened again, and it didn't happen in a small portion. It happened in a huge fashion. I will hit you with the teams that lost right away. Number 3, Kansas beats number 1, Baylor on the road, 64-61 to move in the number 1 spot in the nation. Number 2, Gonzaga lost to number 23, BYU, 91-78 for their first loss since November. And then the undefeated San Diego State, number 4 in the nation, lost to then under 500 UNLV, 66-63. All right, they were on the road. No, they were at home.
Yeah, it was tough.
This is why people didn't take them as a real team. And I can completely understand it, but I still think they have a lot of talent.
Yeah.
All of these teams that we're talking about lost a game. I've said it before. I'll say it again. They are not men. They are not in the NBA. They don't have professional talent around them. Mistakes happen. But too many of these, and you're not in the tournament. So that's why these teams are in the top 10, because those teams that make too many mistakes don't make the tournament. You look at it, North Carolina had very good games against teams, and they couldn't finish because of mistakes. Look at the Duke game. They lost to Virginia on a buzzer beater. You don't make those mistakes, you win those games, your conference record looks a lot different. So moving forward, these teams can't let a downfall happen, and I don't think they will.
Nah.
But these are just mental errors and slip-ups that shake up the entire face of college basketball. What are your thoughts on it? And who is Shayne Williamson's number 1 team in college basketball?
That's a good question. The Kansas Baylor game was really entertaining. It was really good to see Bill Self's team go into a tough environment because Waco was jumping all night. And Baylor also hasn't lost since November, so it was a really good game. Baylor had a chance to tie it at the buzzer. He missed, unfortunately. So I think both of those teams are still really good. And if any of these highly ranked teams are going to make noise in the tournament, which I think a lot of these highly ranked teams are going to lose early in the tournament, we'll touch on that in a later podcast. But I think these two have 2 of the highest chance to do so. In terms of the Gonzaga game, this BYU team is definitely the best since Jimmer Fredette was walking around in Utah at Brigham Young University. So it was a big game at home for them against Gonzaga, and they pulled it out. And then San Diego State, I'm not really sure what happened against UNLV. Their defense wasn't as stout as it usually was. I'm willing to just chalk it up as a slip up. It's really hard to go undefeated during the whole course of a year, no matter what conference you're in. So
yeah,
their first loss of the year, I'm not tripping too much. But to wrap it up, we're going to take a quick dip into women's college basketball. And shout out Sabrina Ionescu. I touched on her earlier when she was at the Kobe tribute. Later that day, after she left the tribute, went to a game against Stanford. She became the first college basketball player, male or female, to have 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 1,000 assists over the course of her career, which is absolutely insane. That's putting numbers on the board all 4 years you're in college. So shout out to her and Oregon basketball. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yep. Congratulations, Sabrina. You've had a very good season. I'm very excited to see them play in the NCAA March Madness tournament.
Yeah.
But before ending today's show, we'd like to pause. And I'd like to tell you guys about our new mini-series that we're pretty excited about, and it highlights the XFL. We call it the XFL Extra, which will be available for a second episode very soon, so keep your eyes open for that, and we will talk about the state of the league, give our prediction. It's a very fun conversation and fun time to listen to. You should just give it a look on our YouTube page. But that's it for us today. It was great talking with y'all, dummies. And you guys have a great week. We will see you next week on Jay and Shays Sports for Dummies. Have a good one.
Stay blessed.
And just a mental note. We will not be able to see you guys next week because we are on spring break.
Lovely.
But the week after, we will be right back and right on the mic for you guys.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Stay blessed.